Welcome into the Skinny Podcast, the weekly Potpourri edition. I'm Richard Skinner, Local12.com digital sports columnist and editor with Rick Broering. As always, it's presented by Blake, the attorney Maislin. We got college basketball to get to, recap the crosstown shootout. We'll look around the Bengals landscape. Got a little college football playoff stuff we're going to talk about. A gambling segment like we always do. And my favorite part of the podcast where you can ask me a question on any topic. Hit up the Xverse, Ask Skinny Anything is the hashtag. I've got one here, Rick, a list that somebody asked me to do. I'll do that list during that segment. And let's just take it away because we got a lot to get to.
Yeah, I think there's a good Ask Skinny Anything. I can't remember what they were, but I remember when I was putting them in that I feel like one of them was pretty good. Right, so cool. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But first, let's get through the Bengals stuff. There's not a lot here to sort out, but one of the big conversations in the city this week was that exchange between Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow that took place on the sidelines. We've had a John Boy lip reading breakdown now of it. And essentially it looked like it boiled down to Joe was blowing up saying that he was embarrassed by the Bengals play, or maybe perhaps a certain instance that happened, like Jay Morrison seemed to think this week. And Zach Taylor was trying to tell him, hey, settle down, just enjoy the win. What was your take on that whole exchange?
I mean, those that think that there's an animosity relationship between the two, I don't think you understand sometimes the dynamic of coach and player in sports. I mean, those kind of interactions happen constantly. They happen between coaches. I remember once I was assistant in a game, and I was asking our coach when a player was getting in trouble towards the end of a game. I said, "Do you want a timeout? Do you want a timeout? Do you want a timeout?" Just to see, so it was the thought process in his head. The official heard me say timeout. He gave us a timeout, and the coach goes, "No, I don't want one." He turned around and lit me up. And after the game, he goes, "Man, I'm sorry. I should have done." I said, "No, you're fine. I'm a big boy. It's okay." Those things happen, man. So that part of it, I don't think is a big deal whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I wonder, I was listening to Paul Dehner's podcast, and I thought he asked the best question about this, which is, why was everybody so infatuated by this exchange in this video? Because like when I saw it, I kind of just had that looks like a super competitive quarterback and coach going back and forth. I don't even think they're mad at each other necessarily. It might be somebody else on the team or something that fell through the cracks or whatever. I mean, who knows? But like that didn't seem like much to me. But it became a big topic of conversation this week, and people were very worked up. Do you think it's because people want there to be some animosity between Joe and Zach?
Yes, because they want because who's going to come out the winner in that, right? If
Joe, they want Zach gone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's all about. Look, Joe can't get along with the head coach. Go replace the head coach because we're not going to replace Joe Burrow. No, it has nothing to do with any of that stuff. And I thought they both explained it really well this week. Joe especially, I thought, explained it really well about, striving for perfection, being upset with himself. Listen, he wasn't just talking about holding the team accountable. He was talking about holding himself accountable. I like, he used the term standard. I'm playing to a standard. And I think there's something to be said for that. It's not just playing to win 16-13. You're playing to the standard. And that standard for this offense right now is about a 30-point a game standard, right? And Joe Burrow throwing 3 touchdowns and not committing 3 turnovers. So you could see he was also, I don't know if you caught the one where he threw the interception on the deep ball to Chase, and he was looking at the tablet on the sideline. He slammed it down because I think he realized that throw needed to be in a better spot than that. I needed to throw it maybe more towards the pylon and give Jamar more of a chance. And so he's made it himself for that. And I think that was just a frustrating day in the second half, especially because the defense coming up with takeaways, and one was returned for a touchdown. Another one should have been returned for a touchdown. And so the offense didn't get many chances to rectify some things in the second half either. So I think that is literally what that was all about. And anybody making anything more of it is just silly.
For some people, I think they definitely want there to be a rift between Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor. That's definitely a part of it. I'll give some fans the benefit of the doubt, though, and think there is sort of there's been this murmur all season long of like, we need Joe Burrow to put his foot down and say enough's enough. We need to see him blow up. We need him to be the leader of this organization. And for some people, maybe that's what this signified, is that he is, even when they're playing well and winning a game handily, he's holding everyone accountable down there. And maybe some people just really find that intriguing or enjoy watching that. But I just don't understand the intrigue of this video, I guess is my point.
I think people want there to be a wedge between coach and quarterback, so they'll get rid of the coach. I really think that's what that's mostly about. Listen, I mean, I've done this before as a coach. I've come out of games having lost and actually be happy with how a team played. Listen, you guys did everything you could, and we just wound up with a short end. There's been games I won by 20 points, and my team's won by 20 points, and I've been mad because we didn't play the game the right way. And so I do understand. I think anybody that's competitive in that nature holds themselves, or at least should hold themselves to some level of standard.
Yeah, and that's the old process-oriented approach, right? It's not about the result so much as long as the process is you're doing things the right way. moving on, Skinny, on the Bengals, how much time have you spent poring over the Bengals playoff scenarios at this point?
Well, I did write a story on Monday, just laying out what had to happen, and I think I confused our news team when they tried to write it because I don't think they understood. One of the scenarios is that either the Chargers or Broncos have to lose their last three. And I was watching our Bob Herzog, and he's just reading what was written, and he I don't know if they took my stuff or whatever. So he said, "Wait a minute, they both play Thursday. How can they both lose their last three?" And I'm like, "No, dude, the word either has to lose their last three." So yes, one of them is losing. We're doing this on Thursday. One of them is going to lose tonight. And then you need the one that loses tonight to then lose their last two. The better scenario for the Bengals, obviously, is it's the Broncos, because then you can hand them loss number 2 of the 3 losses they need to have. And then, depending on this Pat Mahomes thing, and maybe it drags to the last week where they're playing for the 1 seed, they got to play Kansas City the final week. So there is a small path there. I don't think there's any path if Denver wins the Thursday night game. The Chargers hold the head-to-head tiebreaker. They still have to play New England and it's somebody else bad. I can't remember who is off the top of my head. New England, the Raiders are their last 2. They're not losing both of those. So the path is literally Denver has to lose the Thursday night game. Then the Bengals beat them. And then that last week at Pittsburgh becomes meaningful for both teams. And they have to beat Kansas City. And the Bengals would have to beat Pittsburgh.
Something else that's been brought up for probably a month or more now, but it's been the conversation's been changing a little bit over the last week or so, is the Lou Anarumo idea of if he's coaching for his job or not right now. Do you get that sense? Do you think these last few games are Lou Anarumo making his case to stick around?
I don't. I'm going to tell you the die's probably been cast. Maybe if this team makes the playoffs and the defense does something special to get them there the last few weeks, or then does something special in the playoffs. But barring that, I think the decision's already been made in that regard. I really do. And I don't see Lou coming back. I hope he does. I don't think he is to blame for this. I know fans want to make it easy and say it's the coach's fault, because it's always the coach's fault. But again, there's also, when you have seasons like this and a unit underperforming like it is, no matter why it's underperforming, I believe it's because of poor personnel more than anything else, not poor scheme or coaching. But somebody pays the price for that, Rick. You know that. Everybody knows that. In fact, if you got Lou Anarumo over a beer, he would tell you he understands it's probably coming. And probably a position coach on that side of the ball as well is probably going to go. That's just the way things work. I don't know if that's right. I don't think I agree with it, but that's just the way it is.
I think it's probably right to some extent. I mean, at a certain point, failure falls on the person in charge of that unit. And I understand there are other circumstances at play here, but the other part of this that is the easy way out for the organization is it's much easier to say that one guy was the problem who was in charge than to say we need 11 new starters.
No, that's right. I mean, and that's, again, it goes back to the point. That's just how this works. And then that puts the coach, then I will say that then puts the head coach on the hot seat, because you've tried to isolate the one issue, and the issue this year is clearly the defense. Again, whether who's to blame for that, we can argue that till we're blue in the face. But you isolated what the issue is, and then you have to rectify that. And sometimes the rectifying of that is, for better or for worse, making a coaching change.
Sam Hubbard tore his PCL while catching a touchdown in this game. What does his future look like?
I wrote it, a kind of an injury update story. I kind of was thinking that we were going to get news on Wednesday that his season was over. It's probably trending in that direction, but for right now, it's still week to week. And I wrote it with the tint of Sam Hubbard's last play as a Bengal may have been him catching a touchdown pass, and I firmly believe that's the case. The only thing I can think of, I would say this: he will not be back on the current contract he's on. He's got one more year. He's due $9 million in base salary next year. He would only count $2 million against the cap if they let him go and they release him. Or they can maybe say, listen, you're such a culture guy for us. 1 year, $2.5 million, with some incentives thrown in there, we'll keep you around. I think that's the only way that Sam Hubbard comes back in 2025 with the Bengals.
Any other thoughts on the Bengals?
No, I mean, it's weird to have this feeling that we are going to take this to the last week. I really think we are. I don't know what that means. I don't know why that is, but it just feels like we're taking this to the last week. In this season of craziness, and the way that game on Sunday was about as wacky as you can imagine, with all the penalties and the turnovers and the Jordan Battle nonsense and the Sam Hubbard touchdown reception, this season is going to go to the last week.
Well, Skinny, it feels like we've reached the weekend at Bernie's portion of the season where
yes.
the Bengals are dead, but we're still carrying them around from week to week being like, well, I don't know. It's still kind of alive here. Right? We'll play it out.
I mean, at most places you look, any analytics place you look gives them anywhere from a 4 to 6% chance to make the playoffs. That's pretty damn slim. But I do know this. It goes up a ton if Denver loses this game to the Chargers and then the Bengals beat Denver next week.
Yeah.
And assuming the Bengals beat Cleveland.
4% chance is still a chance.
That's right. You're saying there's a chance, baby.
You can always get local stories right here on YouTube, but go ahead and hit that subscribe button to get notifications to stay in the know.